Okay, Assalamualaikum everyone. Welcome to our last series on Islamophobia, History of Hate and Discrimination in America. Our focus for today will be the psychological effect it has on a human being. Our guest speaker for today is Dr. Shima Rostami. She is the Executive Director of Gateway Human Trafficking and our very own Associate Executive Director, Marwan Hamid.
Thank you, Sana. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Shima, for joining us and giving us some of your time to explain to us the psychological point of view behind hate, discrimination, and Islamophobia at the end of it. So I would like to give you the floor to present the presentation you prepared for us and for our audience.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I just would like to English-wise say hi, and then Muslims in Muslim language and world say Assalamu alaikum. I hope everyone has a great evening. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you and talk to our community and your group and followers about Islamophobia in the context of the psychology aspect of that. Shortly, I'm going to share my screen with you, but I was sharing with our friends, Marwan and Sana, about how it started. It started from me being so eager and curious to see why we are experiencing this hate we do in our community, in European countries and in the United States and perhaps some other countries against Muslims. I am originally from Iran. I am in the United States since 2013. I came here to continue my education. I received my master and doctor also. During the whole time, everything regarding the community approach and how they see Muslims, reactions toward Islam and Muslims, different views. It's been interesting to me because coming from a Muslim country, majority Muslims, it wasn't our experience. And I was an adult that I started my international travel. I was curious to figure out what's going on in people's mind, that they act toward their feelings. Because I'm one of those people who believe that we are human beings. We have all the rights to feel differently about different things, different people. But, you know, acting based on your feelings, both hate and love, that create a chaos and hurt people and the community, it just doesn't make sense. And it was a time I was studying more on child soldiers, which is a form of child trafficking, human trafficking in armed conflict, that I was able to learn about moral injury. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about it. Let me just share my screen first with everyone. So, okay, here we go. So I'm just going to ask Sana before I start. So when I'm going to share my screen, I can't see you. In case if you couldn't hear me, you couldn't hear the video, something happened, you need to tell me, say something, so that I stop and fix the issue, and then I just move forward. Thank you. Okay, so here is my screen. So what I want to talk to you tonight is about the world we are making with our words. And I'm going more in deep into the psychological aspect of that. So let's just start by watching this interesting video. This video is posted on Facebook, YouTube. And it was apparent from one of the nonprofit organizations trying to bring the community together toward one of the elections years ago. It's not for this election, but it has a point. And I found it very interesting to talk to you about Islamophobia from the perspective of children who are the future leaders, who are the future of the world. And then we can just think it for a second, the world we adults are making with our words and how it affects in the mind and reaction of our children who are the leaders of tomorrow. Let's watch the video.
So what Muslim is, it's a religion, and what it is, it's basically like a copy of Christianity, but it's not quite.
So who here knows any Muslims? So where would you say Muslim people live?
Some people think that Islam people are like going to destroy their country, but some people are nice to Islam people and they give them chances.
There's some people in the world that are afraid of Muslim people. Do you guys believe that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared of Muslims too, because some Muslims are bad and they can try and hurt you. I don't think that people should be afraid of all Muslims just because this small group of people are bad.
You don't want to judge them. Don't judge a book by its cover. Maybe that person's really nice.
So I found the video very interesting because
That is very interesting. Yeah.
It was talking about children that when they asked them, do you know any Muslim? And no one even raised their hands. So none of these children had any reaction to even know a Muslim, but they heard about the word Islamophobia. And Islamophobia, frankly, is a big name. I mean, saying the word, the vocabulary in the English matters of that. It's not a simple word that you think children at that age should know that word and terminology. So the question is, they haven't seen any Muslim. They haven't had any reaction with any Muslim based on what they say. Where is it coming, this feeling from about Islamophobia, about feeling of Muslims? And the video had a good point that many people don't know Muslims, don't know Islam. Many people never had a chance to interact first place with Muslims. All comes from what they heard, what they were told, that created feelings in their gut, inside them about Muslims and Islam. And now the point is that I want you to think about it for a second. These children we were here, they are the future. They are the leaders. And if we as adults don't solve this problem for them, don't help them to make the big community, in this case, Muslims and Islam, they're gonna grow up with this unknown. They're gonna grow up with the fear of unknown. So that's the point. Let's just help everyone get to know Muslims, the real Islam. And I'm gonna promise you that many part of these problems and hates just go away, because people react under fear of the fear of unknown. So that's coming, that base of Islamophobia. So going to the presentation, meaning I want to talk to you tonight about Islamophobia in a different voice. And that voice is the voice of moral injury and psychological aspect of that. So everyone has their own special way knowing things, getting to know a problem, a phenomenon, something. So I would tell you that 6 years ago, I was in this step of getting to know what does it mean for people, Islamophobia, why people are afraid of Islam. So I started this. Before going further, here is how my mind process works. I stop there, I think about it, and rather than moving forward, I just go steps back to just build on that. So for that reason, I'm gonna tell you, when I started this slide, I plan to move forward to the next slide, But eventually I started building more as base to this slide, which I intended to be the first slide. So I go back to share with you my whole brain process, that what happened after that I wanted to start from here. So I go one back. Okay, let me just stop it and share it again because it was not moving anywhere. Okay, now we are. So I'm just going back. Literally, I had to go 5 slides back of what I actually intended to start it. Okay, so I'm not going to share with you the presenter's view because then for some reason it's not moving, and I apologize for technical issues. So
It's okay.
I had to build 4 more slides on the first slide I intended to start my program and presentation. It just didn't make sense to me as a person who's that English is third language. So I was thinking, they say Islamophobia, and we know what's Islam, and the word phobia means extreme fear. As you see, I just started do the process everyone does these days. I just type Islamophobia in Google and see what is the definition of Google. This is something everyone has access to. I just didn't want to go to dictionary, Oxford, or other forms of dictionary that people may not have access to. I just wanted to find the definition of Islamophobia from a source that everyone has access to, and that was Google. So as you see, by the way, I checked it today, 5:15 p.m. The definition is still the same. This is the same thing is on the Google. And this is dislike of or prejudice against Islam or Muslims, especially as a political force. And I was thinking, well, it doesn't make sense. Islamophobia, in my world, as a person not having English as native language, should be extreme fear of Islam, not dislike. So then I was curious to then find the meaning of the word phobia, because I was thinking, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't know the definition of phobia, and I was like wrong for rest of my life learning English, that phobia is extreme fear. Again, definition of phobia in Google just talks about a type of anxiety disorders, a type of extreme fear about an object, activity, situation. And by the way, it says that this is not a rational fear. So then I'm thinking, and by the way, this is the definition of phobia today, 5:17 p.m. I just searched to make sure this is up to date. Up to date, this is exactly, again, the anxiety disorder about something which is not, it doesn't have any rational base about that. Then I'm thinking, okay, why people, based on the definition of the language, when you say Islamophobia, it should talks about extreme fear and anxiety. But practically, when people say about Islamophobia, they mean hate against Islam, hating Muslims, disliking. And in many cases, they refer to extreme feelings that people usually react to that feelings. That is what practically Islamophobia has been, and we hear practically within our community. So these are then the terms. I find out there are debates outside in the world about the term Islamophobia and its limitations. So all around the world, these are the various definitions is used to describe Islamophobia. Frankly, then I learned that I had a special right to just feel being confused in the terminology world, because I learned that actually there are so many scholars that they are in my place, because what we are told based on the terminology is different from what we see and what we feel. practically within the community about Islam. So before just going to talk about the moral injury aspect of that, let's just review some words and facts about our topic tonight. So we learned that the definition of the word is different from the practical use of the word. Now let's just review some points, especially if there are some friends, community members, they are not Muslims, they are new to the faith, they are not aware of various definitions and terminology about the Islam and Islamophobia. Let's just be clear on some facts and key facts about our topics. Fact number one is that Islam is not a race, it's a religion. It's an ideology which offers how to see the world and live your life. It was very interesting, even in the video, those kids were using sometimes the word Muslims and Islam in different places. So it's very important to see that Islam is a religion. It's a viewpoint, ideology, how to see the world and live your life. Islam, Christianity, Judaism are Abrahamic faiths and religions. In other words, we all are somehow sisters, brothers, and cousins. More importantly, not liking Muslims is not Islamophobia. Let's just be clear on that. We all have people that we don't like. That's okay. That's just human. That's not dangerous. You have the right to dislike whoever or whatever you want. Questioning Islam is not Islamophobia. Criticizing Muslims is not Islamophobia. Criticizing Islamic governments is not Islamophobia. What Islamophobia means is denying the rights of Muslims to exist individually or collectively as Muslims with the same right as everyone else. That is what Islamophobia is. Islamophobia takes different forms in different ages, but remains the same thing. The view that Muslims have no rights to exist as free and equal human beings. That is what Islamophobia means. Now that we are on the same page, I just start the presentation again from the beginning. So I think I should be okay to share my presentation view now. Okay, good. So let's talk about Islamophobia now in a different voice, that we are on the same page. What is it in the terminology and actually what is in reality? So I'm going to talk to you about development of a moral injury, and in a second I'm going to talk to you and tell you what is a moral injury, and then how to cure a moral injury, and then what is resisting injustice. So moral injury refers to an injury to an individual's moral conscience. And moral injury consists of the destruction of trust following betrayal of what's right in a situation and the loss of capacity to love. And when someone lost the capacity of love, that losing of love replaced with hate. And because of that phobia and the deep fear people have, then they react on that hate replaced with love. Okay, let's talk about it a little bit because I want to open up moral injury more for you. So moral injury, it's a very new form of trauma, is discussed in the field of psychology, especially in the past 30 to 40 years. And right now, and in the past 30 years, the popular way of bringing up moral injury, curing moral injuries is among US soldiers who came back from the combat to cure their trauma. And I'm going to use an example for you that it really applies to my work, that got me interested to learn about moral injury and how it applies to Muslims. So 6 years ago, when I was working on a project, the project was about child soldiers, a form of child trafficking, human trafficking at armed conflicts. So I learned about so many soldiers in the combat fields that they are coming back with a moral injury concerning child soldiers. So child soldiers, unfortunately, are not protected under international laws, meaning civilians, children's, women's, it's a long law. They are protected under a special law, which is international humanitarian law at the war conflict. However, there are some groups, there are some exceptions to that law, and one of those groups are child soldiers. Meaning that if you are a soldier, you are at war, and then you see a child, you receive the order that that child is a suicide bomber, is coming toward you, you have an order to shoot that child. Many soldiers and many people in that place, they shoot that child. They killed the child. Some cases that child was a suicide bomber. Some cases that child wasn't a suicide bomber. Regardless of that child being a suicide bomber or not, it really destroyed the mind, memory, and feelings and psychology of that soldier who shot the child. They see a child, they have an order to shoot that child. Before shooting that child, many of them were seeing their own children. They were seeing their nephews and nieces because they couldn't figure out in their feelings, gut, mentality, how they can shoot a child. But they had that order. So that order, what it caused them, it caused a fight inside them. Is that order right or is that order wrong? And when the fight gets to the inside feeling of what is right and what is wrong, that moral injury starts to exist within the mind and soul of that individual. And if that moral injury respond to that questions of what is right, what is wrong, what I can trust, what I can't trust, who I can trust, who I can't trust, won't be solved, won't be addressed, there is a destruction of trust happens inside of that person. And when that happens, that person is going to lose the capacity of love concerning that specific issues. And when they lost the love, that hate little by little replaced with that love. And again, as continue, if that trauma concerning that moral injury, which has started from a simple question of what is wrong, what is right, won't be answered and solved, people react on that hate. Now let's just put the scenario about Islamophobia in our community. I want you to think for a second about any of those children that you saw in the video beginning of the presentation. None of those children knew any Muslim, but they knew what is Islamophobia. They knew about the word, how to use it. Some of them expressed they have concern about Muslims. They are afraid Muslims are going to destroy the country. That is exactly the place that question about what is wrong and what is right starts for those children.
I have a question. So that
Yes.
would answer the question where the fear of Islam is taught. I mean, hate is basically taught then.
That
right?
is true. That is true because people, when we are born, we are not born with hate or love. this is something we earn as we grow up. And it really depends on, we educators in the field of education, we call that as cultural resources. Cultural resources are referring to everything is beyond and around that person and individual, especially as a child, that they grow up, that their character is built and grow up based on those resources they have. I bet any of those children were not in the community they were. Imagine they were in another community, maybe another country. Their emotions about, their feelings about Islam, Islamophobia, and Muslims might be better or might be toward worse. So the short answer to your question is that yes, this is something really depends on the cultural resources we have around our community, around children. And when it starts building on that moral injury and the question of right and wrong may start from at any age. I would tell you that one of the reasons we have these children at this age already know about Islamophobia and start asking a question is the power of social media. So they hear lots of things that connected to different parts of the world, many places. Matter of seconds, information is shared that perhaps none of us in our childhood had that access to information. But the problem with that is that then the media perhaps and social media perhaps is not fair to many facts and issues concerning many peacekeeping projects for many reasons that it's not, this panel is not about it, so I'm not going there. But going back to the point, that question of trust, those children in the video, they are involved with their development process. If they can trust Muslims or if they can't trust them, are they going to like them or they should be afraid of them? If those conversations and trainings start with those kids so that they know they can trust Muslims, as one of them mentioned, that there may be nice people among them, which it is. So they can grow and develop that feelings, mentality of their judgment, gut feelings, to trust. And when they trust, that love develops. They want to know more. They want to communicate. They want to have relationship with Muslim communities and Muslims, to be friends with them rather than be afraid from Muslims. However, if at that age or sometimes later they experience something very negative from the community, from single individuals, that's the potential danger of that person lose the trust to the whole community. And so it's going to be very difficult for that individual to trust again and establish the love relationship. So that's why it really matters for us to cure the moral injury of people. So moral injury, actually it's something, the interesting thing about moral injury is that it has the two sides to that. It's a highway, it's not one way. What it means that not only those people are afraid of Muslims, are experiencing moral injury concerning Islamophobia, Muslims, including us, who are a part of the community, we are experiencing a kind of moral injury too. I'm just gonna ask you this question. How many times you may ask yourself if, is it a good time for me to go to the grocery store or not? How many times you may ask yourself 2 times, if it's proper for me as a Muslim to participate in that special gathering? How many times you may ask yourself that question, that can I trust people in that gatherings to be there? Is anyone going to hurt me by saying something or acting against me? So all of these questions that any of us in the panel or friends who are Muslims may ask these questions, meaning that we are experiencing moral injury. We are
That's true.
experiencing a part of trauma, right? Because we even don't know then who we can trust. And that's exactly when the moral injury happened. We don't know, sometimes we are confused who are our friends that they are not going to judge us because of my head covering, because of my name, which is a Middle East name, or so many things. We are afraid if we participate in a training or in a gathering, they're gonna joke with us and call us, those terrorists are here.
No, you're just so true. I was just, since you pointed it out, I was just I went grocery with my kid, and I have a mask that says sabr in Arabic, and underneath it says patience.
Yeah.
So I was putting that on, and I took it off. I was like, I have my kids with me. I don't want to let anyone know that I'm a Muslim, even though I felt really bad. So I took the Arabic writing mask off, and I just put on a plain black one. I was like, I just want to blend in with my kids right now. I don't want anyone to look at me. And
Thank you
then
for sharing
that's
that.
a form of a trauma.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what the moral injury we as the Muslim community are experiencing as the victims, and also the other parties is experiencing, and they are victims too. They are victims of lack of knowledge, a fear created for them, not be solved, not be answered, not be addressed. And we are victims also of a world of fear of unknown. I can tell you that this fear of unknown of Muslims is only because we haven't been in places. I would tell you that many of us haven't given the opportunity in being in some places. Not because we didn't want to, we just didn't given that opportunity because we were judged by some people who were dealing with their own fear from Muslims. And they decided, unfortunately, to even not invite Muslims to be at the table. And that's exactly what it is dangerous. That unknown is dangerous, and then we not willing to start knowing each other. So that's the point of one of the specific points of the trauma associated with moral injury, that both parties, including the community, all of these events is happening, they are experiencing a form of trauma. And I would tell you that every society that is driven by hate begins by seeking to destroy its enemies, and unfortunately it ends up destroying itself. And I'm gonna tell you again about flashback to the video we saw. Those children are the future of this community. I'm gonna ask you to ask yourself this what if question. Ask yourself, what if none of these children be addressed the questions they have about Muslims? What if none of those adults around those children be educated or have the passion to help them move through this unknown world of fear and so many things? But what if those children had passionate adults around them to respect having different people, to take their kids to Muslim events, have Muslim friends, to just help them know the world around them? And lastly, I'm going to refer to resisting injustice. I put in one of the slides that what is the cure to moral injury. So one of the great philosopher, Carol Gilligan, that I really respect to, she suggests, she's from United States. She's right now in New York. She was a faculty of the psychology education department at Harvard for many years. She provides, she developed the ethics of care, and then she talks about moral injury, and she provides resisting injustice as a cure to moral injury. And what resisting injustice is,
Dr. Shima, Rostami,
think you lost connection.
Yeah.
It has been.
Oh, she's.
I think it's going back and forth. Oh,
Okay, I'm back.
oh,
Yeah.
you're back. Great.
So people just need to know that we are Muslims, so we have families, we have children, we are dealing with the same everyday life. So we are not aliens from other planets. And when they know us and they recognize that there isn't any difference between our needs, between what we do, then they realize that and they are opening their arms. So I would tell you that the fight against Islamophobia starts from us, the community of Muslims, to take the first step. And then those friends who are not Muslims, but they are the friends of Muslims and Islam, to take the step back. Let's start having these conversations, talk to each other. It takes different phases. It might be political, as simple as voting. It might not be that. It might be whatever. Find your way of doing that. There is a way. It doesn't have the fighting against moral injury and resisting injustice doesn't have a prescription that I can provide for you tonight. Just want to ask you to find it out for yourself based on your situation. Doesn't matter where you are from, what's your situation, there is something you can do to start this fight, to introduce yourself, to introduce the real Islam and Muslims to the world, to solve this problem. And also, I really want to talk to you about a little bit about a person in Missouri who started talking about moral injury and resisting injustice hundreds of years ago, decades ago, without even we have this terminology. And we know what that is. So when I was a child, I was in Iran. So the public broadcasting for children, it was showing famous animations of the world. And one of those animations was about the story that, okay, this famous man, Mark Twain, developed The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. That was my favorite animations I was watching as a child in Iran. I just gonna tell you that I'm speechless how I ended to be in Missouri, St. Louis, around the area he was, and he moved to St. Louis.
Wow.
But I can tell you that Mark Twain started marching about hate crimes, racism, so many other issues associated with that decades ago in Missouri. There is a part in chapter 11, I believe, of his book, when he was experiencing that moral injury. This is Mark Twain's moral injury in that book. It's about that black guy. If I can trust that black guy or not, because people of the church tell me you can't, and you go to hell if you don't turn this black guy in. And it's about literally 2-3 pages of the process, thinking process, that Huckleberry Finn, the character of the book, talks about to open it up. He is talking about the inside fights in the words, in the language, in the words of Huckleberry Finn. But this is the feelings, the gut feelings of Mark Twain talk about it. The time that Missouri, the states, were struggling about these racism issues. And frankly, we are still struggling with that. And then at the end of a conversations, after some pages talking about it, then he says, all right, then I'll go to hell. And he says, I am not going to turn in my friend because I haven't seen anything bad from him. Doesn't matter what the church people tells me. What doesn't matter what people of the town gonna judge me. I'm gonna trust my gut feelings. If the punishment of that is that I need to go to hell, then I go to hell. So I just thought I need to talk about him being in Missouri and talk about this important issue. And I'm going to end and close up, and then we can open up the questions if there is any. I just want to review with you, and I want to end where I started this program and presentation. So Islamophobia is always about inability of a group of people to make space for differences and different voices. Not only to be heard, but also to be tolerated. Only being heard is a part of the solution, but it's not the only part of that, because hearing means listening, that they really value what you say. They are able to take actions based on what you says, not only hearing what you are saying. No groups and society that adopts Islamophobia will ever or can ever create a free society. And the hate that begins with Muslims never ends with Muslims. Right now, it started, perhaps many of us, the whole society started more and more feeling Islamophobia after 9/11. This is 2021 now. And we were in the pandemic of coronavirus. How much we have seen phobia and hate crimes against Asian communities. So this is a proof of that. The fight, the hate started with Muslims, never ended with Muslims. And if we don't start fighting with all forms of hate crimes, this is just going to grow. It's worse than coronavirus. They found a vaccine for coronavirus, eventually different versions of that. There isn't any vaccine for hate crimes, but the action of us as a community. And then lastly, Islamophobia is only secondary about Muslims. Primarily, it's about the failure of a group to accept responsibility for their own failures. No society that has ever fostered Islamophobia or any other kinds of hate has ever sustained liberty and human rights or religious freedom. So fighting against Islamophobia is fighting for the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. It's fighting for every right for any human being, because what it means that we are here for each other. And I want to just take a moment and tell you, we as a community of Muslims who perhaps experience many of hard feelings and emotions, the friends of Muslims who are at the panels hearing that, that experience with us, they walk through with us that what we are experiencing, they know how does it feel. So in these difficult moments, let's don't forget about Asian communities in our community. Please try to reach out. If you can do anything for those communities, let's do that, because no one like us who felt what does it mean to be judged, to just be excluded because of what we believe, what we are, who we are, what are their names, how we look like, many of things that we can't even change it. Doesn't understand how does it feel and what Asian Americans and Asian community are going through. So let's just be with them and many other community members that they are going through different kinds of hates in our community. And remember, the hate starts with Muslims, doesn't end with Muslims. Thank you so much for having me. I'm here. If there are any questions, comments, please.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for this very, very informative presentation. It actually touched a lot of, I would say, probably my own moral injury myself. I'm from Iraq myself, and I lived through multiple armed conflict there, and I studied international humanitarian law itself. Yeah. I like the way you pointed out to I think you were pointing out to the rules of distinctions, proportionality. I think that's a difficult word to pronounce. in terms of children and the armed conflict. So it sounds to me from what you explained to us right now in your presentation that it is not just the lack of knowledge with the group who does not accept other groups or does not tolerate other beliefs or faith. It's the misinformation that's being provided to them as well. And that sounds a big issue, especially in elementary school, for example, where we saw the video of the children who doesn't know any Muslims among them, but they know a lot about Islam, and their idea is very negative about Islam, actually.
That's exactly correct. So it's not either or, it's both. So it's a cycle of abuse. So there is a fear of unknown, this unknown, and then not have access to the right information, which is misinformation. And then again, it just created more unknown, and then more unknown created misinformation. Then it's just going around. So it gets so deep that those people just lose their total trust on that issues, which is in this case, Muslims and Islamophobia. They don't want to do anything about it. So one of the things I can just think practically, I know that people are asking what to do. Again, I said it doesn't have prescription. I can't tell you what to do because I'm not in your place. I'm not living your life to know what's the best for you. But try to be in the society, in the community at large, wherever you can, whenever you can, and you are comfortable with. Try to get out of your comfort zone. And I'm going to tell you what I do to be out of my comfort zone. As a practicing Muslims, it has been difficult to participate in many of gatherings for me that especially Muslims are not there, because I end up being the only Muslim woman being there, especially being an activist in the field of human trafficking. So I learned that one of the solutions for me to help me just balance my inside feelings of, when you don't know, you're afraid. When you get somewhere, you just feel a very unknown fear just comes to you, gonna stop you. You don't want to go there. You just get hot, or your blood pressure comes down. So I personally even started not wearing my glasses. And the reason is that because it just helped me not to see the exact, in detail, the reaction of people in their faces.
Wow.
And when I stopped not seeing them, because it's not that bad, but it's bad enough for me not to clearly see how they follow me with their eyes, how they are reacting with their body gesture.
Wow.
Or their face gesture to me when they are like 6 tables away, sitting there. So it really helps me a lot to give me that positivity to be in places. I know you're going to think about it. Oh, she's an activist. She's doing it, this and that. It's just amazing how she's afraid. But the thing is that no one is in anyone's place. That's my point. Try to find out what is the best practice personally help you to be in places that we haven't been, we haven't given the opportunity, or there is lack of expectation to be there for Muslims. And try to show the good of yourself and our community. And again, to present Muslim community, the good of Muslims community, if you are the friend of Muslims in this panel, so that is spreading the word out that people know it is not everyone. I need to acknowledge that. There are bad Muslims, as they are good Muslims everywhere, but I'm going to tell you that perhaps they are just bad people.
That's that's a human community.
Yeah,
that's just
human being. Exactly. Yeah. But unfortunately, we are living in a world of like hashtag they are using in social media. Yeah. Sounds like there is a hashtag following up each of us, right. Being Muslim, people of color, Chinese, Asians, immigrants, people with accents, aliens. So eventually we need to find our own personal way of getting out of our comfort zone to present our community and who we are the best we can.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this information, Doctor. Sana, do you have any questions on the Facebook from our audience?
No.
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 If not, I'll have a follow-up question. So in your one of the slides that you showed us in your presentation, Doctor, the definition of Islamophobia is from what I understand from that slide, is denying somebody's right to practice his or her belief individually or collectively. And that, for me, from what I understand, that apply even for incarcerated people in prison, for example, in jail, if they were denied to their prayer, for example, because that's remind me of one of the cases that we heard recently, that some group of people, Muslims, incarcerated, and then they were being denied to practice their prayer. So that applied to this as well, that consider Islamophobia.
That's right. I mean, here is there is something between the feeling and Islamophobia. Islamophobia is still on the surface of the feelings, that people haven't acted on that Islamophobia. So hate crimes is actually when people act on that Islamophobia, concerning Islamophobia, then it is the hate crime. So there is a difference. So we may see so many people are suffering from Islamophobia, have that feeling, which is internal, but that is not going to be hate crimes unless people act on their feelings. And that's why we hear many times, well, it's under investigation. They are trying to find out what was behind, the motivation behind the suspect, the individual acting on that incident. So, but yeah, and you know, as I said, it takes different faces. Sometimes we hear about that. I've even heard about that some Muslims be in the jail prison, that they weren't given the rights to practice their faith. And that could be very much a part of the Islamophobia that those people in charge of that special ministry they have. But that's exactly true. Islamophobia is not only disliking people. The true definition of that is when a person believes these people don't have a right to exist because they are Muslims. And then when they act on these feelings, that action very much is going to be hate crimes. So then I'm not going to the legal perspective of that how they are going to prosecute that or prove that, but it is how it's going to just be a step by step.
But do you think we should, to change that person's point of view on Islam? Because that person has grown up hating Muslims and Islam for all his life. I mean, you can change, you can teach a child how to love the same way you could teach or unteach hate. But to change an adult in a like a, I don't know,
which will lead me to my follow-up question or comment. I think what you're trying to say, Doctor, here, that we should focus on the children, on the new generation that will lead in the future, basically. You know,
but if we teach the adults, they can teach the children.
I would tell you the answer is both. Again, it's not either or. It needs to be an ongoing situation from different generations. And Sana, going back to your point, I agree that in many fields they say it is very hard to teach people about so many things when they are adult. However, when it comes to the point of feelings, including love and hate, I do believe that miracles happen. Imagine that you see people at late 70, 80, they fall in love. So hate is lack of love. If people are able to function at 90, 100, fell in love, I think this is possible to teach adults about lack of hate, which is love. So that's what I'm saying, that in moral injury, Islamophobia, and other phobias, we are talking about a fear coming from unknown and lack of love. Let's just eliminate the word hate for a second. It is lack of love. And if we replace that at any degree, we are able to bring this 100% lack of love to somewhere down 90%, 80%, 70%, 0. And because it's about human beings, human feeling and emotions, because I've seen many people falling in love at later ages in their life, I do believe it's possible.
Inshallah, it will be possible. And I think it's better practice for all of us as a Muslim community, as a responsibility for us to be ambassadors for our religious beliefs inside the community.
See, this topic is very interesting to me. I just have one more question. I mean, you focused so much on, I mean, like trauma being a highway, two-way highway, and you focused on the person who has lack of love. But what about the person who has been victimized of that lack of love? What do you have to, like, the trauma that they're going through?
That's exactly the same trauma.
I mean,
you know that
Black people face that every day, and now Asians are, and we have been facing that. I mean, all of my school life. I mean, I wasn't raised here. I was 3 when I came here. So, but I have that fear in me, and now I don't want to transfer that fear into my kids. They were born here. They're American Muslims, but I mean, it's there.
Yeah, that's a great point. One day, if you wanted, we can have a conversation about other kinds of phobias that as a moral injury, everyone, not only Muslims, they are feeling. The thing is that we are feeling the same kind of injury, which is lack of trust and lack of love, but our stories are different. How we as Muslim community are feeling and are experiencing moral injury is different from African Americans because our experiences are different. Many of us, perhaps, we are targeted. Basically, I mean, many of us, because we are perhaps from Middle East, the first generations, perhaps we look different, and people can say, well, they are not from here. But going back to your children, for example, especially if this is mixed race, that it's difficult to say from how people look like that they are Muslims. They very much experience the same feeling, perhaps coming transferred to them from their parents and family and community. But that kind of fear and phobia is different from what African American communities are going through. It's different from what Asian community is going through. It's different from what Latinos are going through. But I'm going to tell you that as a whole, as a society, this society is full of various versions of moral injuries and traumas. I even mentioned, I mean, a group of soldiers, they are going through their own moral injuries associated with the war conflict they are coming back from. I would tell you a big group of law enforcement are facing moral injury too. Especially these conversations we have these days concerning the racism issues, Black Lives Matter. So we know that not all law enforcements are bad. So they are a group of them. But you know, this is the moral injury they are experiencing too. So I'm going to tell you that I'm not taking side about anything. I'm just that, try to be that neutral person or a scholar in the field, just report to you that think it through again. This society is experiencing various moral injuries. And if these moral injuries doesn't be addressed timely, unfortunately, we are going to experience these shootings we just experienced last week. So that's how it really matters to start addressing that. I wish I was in charge of Department of Education, Department of Health and Science in the country. then I was doing my very best to address the moral injuries of different countries through trauma-informed approaches to make sure people are aware of the trauma everyone is experiencing in our own world. And that's exactly, I'm just going to close up with the last part of my answers to your questions. That's exactly why I say I can't prescribe anything specific for anyone, because it's about human feelings, it's about human emotions. We have differences, although we are the same as human beings, and I can't tell you what to do or what's the best for you. But all I can tell you that tonight's session was something to help us to be mindful of perhaps something we never thought of before, that we have been going through, but not knowing the terminology of that, not knowing there is a word for that outside. We heard about Islamophobia many times. Those kids knew how to pronounce the word Islamophobia, but I bet you many of them didn't know what is moral injury. So now let's be mindful of our moral injuries too. And I would ask you, please, if you are suspicious you are experiencing that form of trauma or any form of trauma, help is out there. Before it gets late, reach out. Reach out to those experts you trust. It might be the imam of the Islamic Center. You just need to talk for 30 seconds, 20 minutes, an hour. It might be making an appointment with your psychologist. Share with them what you are experiencing. Please do that. Do that favor to yourself, to your family, and to the world and our community. And I just want to let you know, if you are feeling that way, you are not the only person and you are not alone. And help is available for you. Try to find that, reach out, and I promise you, experts in the field are not going to judge anyone. Judgment is the first oath that peoples in the fields and those experts and even the community leaders have. They are here to help you get through the difficulties you are experiencing. So reach out for help, ask for help, and try to establish a trust-related relationship for our community and for the future.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. This is very, very interesting and very helpful.
I appreciate having this conversation. I appreciate you reaching out, providing this opportunity. I think it is a very important matter. It needs to be addressed. And I hope that even if I just want to suggest that, I'm not sure even if this is something you can do, but if you know groups that they have resources about trauma informed, just share it with your groups, that the community knows there is someone they can even talk on the phone. I know this is COVID-19 pandemic. Maybe people don't want to go out. They are not vaccinated. They have a special, but resources that you have in your power, just provide that for the community so that they know there are ears out there to hear, listen to their concerns. Thank you for the great work you do. Thank you for being a voice for a big group of community that deserve that. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And inshallah, we'll see you the head of the education department here soon.
Oh, inshallah. I hope so. Then you're going to see that I'm going to address that moral injuries we are experiencing. Do you know what I'm going to do? I perhaps going to put a big picture of Mark Twain and his sentences somewhere on the books of the education so that they know a big man somewhere decades ago realized that it's all about the trust and we facing our fear inside. So thank you so much.
Thank you.